Good evening, fans. Tim Kitzrow here, the voice of NBA Jam, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by CodeWritePlay.com. Whoa, boom shakalaka!
My mom gave birth in 1985. I was bluer than a Pac-Man ghost, barely alive. In the Cold War, my only blanket was Tetris. I played Rampart with Reagan, rampaged the world for breakfast. The laundromat was my sanctuary, that arcade was my church. I thought I was Rastan, so
how's it going, man? Good. Thanks for having me on. This is cool.
Absolutely. Looking, the studio's looking good there.
Yeah, I'm just realizing I have my son's, I don't even know what you call that, one of his rocking devices there in the back. So
yeah, for the listener who's not watching video, the little layback bouncy seat for the baby. Congrats on the new family life, huh?
Thank you. Yeah, it's my first. Well, he is my first. I think I can use an actual pronoun. His name's Julian, and he's 3 months, so we're in the thick of it.
Boy, yeah, that takes me back. Yeah, I have a 7-year-old now, but I do remember working from my home office with the we had the moving seat thing that goes in the different shapes or whatever and tries to lull them to sleep or whatever, and I'm just programming away. Yeah, that takes me back.
How old is your? You have one, or how many?
We just have the one, and he's 7, and I went indie as soon as he was born. So I wasn't in the game industry, but I was doing pro software at the time, and we decided I would take a run at the indie life, try to take care of the child, and I'm here to tell you, trying to care for an infant and trying to program at the same time, I'm happy to say he's okay. The programming project suffered.
Yeah, I can't imagine, honestly. So your wife was working then full-time on top of that?
Yeah, she's a physician, so not nearly as much leeway about what you do for a career, what you do for work and everything. So I can do my stuff from home, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. I have much respect for you. I can't imagine. I haven't had quite I haven't had the full experience yet taking care of him, just me. My wife's going to go back. My wife's going to go back to work a couple of days a week, so I will be finally taking over, some duties. But yeah, lots of respect.
Wow, it's a transition, but it's awesome. Obviously, it's very cool, and I got to look at a little bit of your Twitter feed earlier, and you seem thrilled about it. So I'm psyched for you. That's cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it's great. It's all the emotions.
Well, cool. So, Greg, thanks for jumping on. Let's start by having you sort of introduce yourself and your work, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I'm a composer. In this case, of course, we're talking mostly about a video game, but I work in a lot of different genres, a lot of different mediums. I mostly started working in film and TV. That was pretty much my only focus. Moved out to LA back in 2007. Did some assistant stuff with other composers, worked for Bear McCreary for a little bit. Really wanted to be, work on a big sci-fi show or something was sort of my big goal. But, the more I sort of, bumped around out here and sort of took different gigs after different gigs, I kind of realized I liked writing in a lot of different styles. I realized, I'm a big gamer, and it wasn't really a part of the career I'd really thought much about. And so I started going to conventions, GDC, PAX, Indiecade, and just sort of, hanging around and seeing who I could meet and having conversations. And that's sort of got me into the gaming industry a little bit. But in the meantime, I was still just working on indie films and just sort of trying to make a go of it as a composer. I didn't really land a full-time gig until I had sort of I don't really want to call it a breakthrough. It's just kind of a set of random events that led me to working at Disney. But a friend of mine, Rob Cantor, had this idea for this crazy video. You may have seen it. It's actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. Came out in 2014. Yeah, I don't know you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's sort of hard to describe, but he had written the song and he wanted someone to make it epic. Basically, he had all these ideas for the visuals, but he needed somebody to basically create the choir parts, write the string quartet parts. Originally, it was for orchestra, but we had to pare it back. And so I did that. Video went crazy viral. Rob kind of got noticed by Disney, and then when he started writing songs for them, he introduced me over there. So it kind of became this, sort of gateway into the animation world that then became sort of the bulk of the work that I did from, let's say, 2015 on. And that's actually also why I ended up on Potionomics, because Jody was the lead developer was sort of aiming for kind of a Disney Pixar art style with the game, and was excited to have met a composer that was doing that.
Mm-hmm. So
that's sort of the more recent history, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So already we've got games, film, TV, viral videos, Disney.
Yeah.
We got a lot of directions we could go from here, but so we should start with Potionomics. Just came out days ago, right?
Monday, yeah.
Monday. How's release going so far?
I think it's going really well. I mean, for a second we were number one on Steam, above everything, above Call of Duty, above, we were literally just right on the top slot. So that was not something I expected to see from an indie game. We've dropped a bit since, but yeah, it seems like release is going really well. The reviews are pretty positive. It seems the biggest criticism is just that the game is too hard. Somebody called it the Dark Souls of potion selling games, which I thought was pretty fun. But yeah, it seems to be going really well.
That's very cool. I want to get your role correct. Are you considered part of Voracious Games? Is that right?
Technically, I don't think so. I mean, I'm a contractor for them. So even though I've been working for them, since the beginning, I'm technically not a member of the company. But that's pretty typical for composers. We usually we do lots of different jobs. So, and I know, like I said, I was working on all these Disney shows at the same time. So I kind of worked it in and amongst my other projects. But yeah, Voracious Games is the name of the studio.
Mm-hmm. And I thought I saw an email that Potionomics as a project started in 2016? Did I see that right?
Yeah. I met the Corey Blackburn, who's one of the co-founders of the company and the lead programmer on the project, at GDC. I think it was my first GDC, actually, that I met him. And that was probably back in 2014. And yeah, he sort of, I guess, thought I would be a good fit for it and sort of went to bat for me when he started working on the project.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a pretty good long development time. So
yeah,
that's cool. Do you mostly work out of your home studio? What's it look like? Yeah,
most composers do these days. There are a couple exceptions actually in the gaming industry. You'll sometimes see, that I can think of like Riot Games, for example, has composers on staff, and some other I've encountered it from time to time where the audio director of the whole company is also the main composer, and so they're basically on staff working in the office. But typically most composers are, they're all contractors like me, work from their own home studio. Maybe they're big enough, they've built one out somewhere. But yeah, and I this is my, third space I've worked out of since, is that right? I think I'm skipping one, but it's my third or fourth space since starting the game. So there were a lot of moves. It was a long period of time. Usually you don't hire composers right at the beginning like that, right? But Jody was building his team sort of from the ground up, and I was there, and so he brought me on board. He also really wanted, and this is also a little unusual, he really wanted some music written in advance of even having the game loop done, because he wanted it to help pitch to investors. He was very investor focused at that time, because as an indie game, funding is sort of life or death. That's everything. It doesn't really matter how much talent you have, how much drive you need. You need funding, otherwise the project will probably just fizzle,
And that's something I love about the Potionomics project, because you see a lot of indie games look at audio in general as kind of an afterthought. Let's get everything else done. Let's slap whatever in. And instead, I mean, if listeners haven't looked at your Twitter feed, I would strongly suggest they do. We'll have links in show notes, of course. But I got to watch something you composed performed by a full orchestra, and I was blown away. It's exactly the kind of stuff that music fans love to watch. Whether it's here's the latest Star Wars film or whatever, but it looked like that. It was the full deal. I couldn't believe it. Yeah,
it's cool. I mean, it's sort of this nice perk of, depending on how you look at it, it could be either a good perk or sort of globalization in general is always sort of like a mixed bag. It's like, it's really good that we can afford to do that. And the way we can do that is by recording in places like Eastern Europe. Prague, Budapest is where we recorded, actually, for this one was Budapest. There's a bunch of these orchestras, and they just do this full time. I mean, they realized that they could basically, they could offer this rate, this service at a much lower rate than we can record locally, and which is, again, not a great thing for local musicians, and I really feel for them. But for me, at our budget level, it really is the difference between being able to record with an orchestra abroad or not recording with one. And so we took advantage of it, and I was really happy with how they did. I mean, I guess I don't want to call it a downside, but I wish I was there. That'd be a big thing. And then also the translation can sometimes become a bit of a stumbling block, because we are talking about music, and music can get very abstract. And so the same sort of, I don't know if you've ever worked with a composer, but there's always like sort of stumbling blocks with language. We all kind of talk about music in different ways, and that's true too, even for musicians, and even in your own country and culture. But when you're interfacing with another country, it can just take longer to get your point across. That's all. And when the clock's ticking down, and you're thinking like, oh, it's another few $100s there that we spend in 10 seconds as the session time goes on.
It's fascinating because it kind of took me back to my young days as a musician. Like I was a musician at an early age, and concert percussionist up through like age 18, I guess, before I went off to college. And it is fascinating when there's a language barrier on top of everything. It's like, music does kind of surpass all that in a sense, but like even as a kid, you're learning like Italian terms, and like, here's what these accent words mean, and there's all this stuff to remember. But it's even more impressive that it had to be nerve-wracking kind of composing everything on your end, sending it off, and hoping everyone's on the same page when they do this major operation to record this music, right?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, when it comes to orchestral music specifically, like you said, it is sort of its own language. And so when you have those dots on a page, they're the same dots that I look at. So it is the same language, at least physically, but at the end of the day, you can only get so much on a piece of paper. You still want to be able to talk to them. Sometimes with Budapest, I'll write instructions in Hungarian, and they get a good chuckle out of that. But like I said, it's a language barrier, and even with folks who live in your own part of the world, because everyone just speaks about it differently. So you end up learning how to, as a composer in general, you learn how to end up communicating in lots of different ways.
Okay, this episode is brought to you in part by Pact Publishing, who I love. If you are a Unity game developer working on 3D games, or if you would like to be, check out Unity 3D game development from Pact, which is available right now. Unity 3D game development was written by not one, but 4 authors, including Anthony Davis, an experienced senior technical artist, Travis Baptiste, who is an expert artist and 3D modeler, Russell Craig, who is a senior software engineer at Unity Technologies, and Ryan Stunkel, who is a professional sound designer. So you should pay attention to who you learn from, and it's difficult to get more authoritative than this. So the book walks you through designing characters, building environments, thinking your way through user interactions, getting technical with things like building, lighting, testing, you name it. And you can join a book community on Discord where you can interact with the authors, meet other devs, participate in events, all kinds of stuff. So check out Unity 3D game development, available right now if that sounds good to you. Big thanks to Pact for supporting the show. I'm curious how music in general started in your life. I mean, like what age, what instruments, how did that go?
Sure. I was lucky. I grew up in a really awesome public school system. I'm from Connecticut, the East Coast, and the schools there were just really well funded and had great arts programs. The specific high school I went to, it was really strange. They worked their foreign language blocks in the same time as the arts and music blocks. And so there was sort of this long 1.5 hour period of time in the center of the day where you would either be taking a foreign language or band or choir. And if you were just taking band or choir, you'd get that full hour and a half. And which was it's the only class in the whole curriculum that was that long. And, you can get it 5 days a week, right? So if you were an arts and theater kid, you could just go whole hog. And it's almost like going to I didn't go to a arts magnet school, but I imagine it felt a little bit like that. So I was just sort of living and breathing music all through high school. I played the trombone. That was my instrument of choice, which, is not the most versatile instrument in the world. I mean, trombone champ notwithstanding. Have you played trombone champ? I'm assuming you're aware.
I've been watching it. I'm waiting to try it. Yeah.
I don't want the carpal tunnel. I don't think I need more frantic mouse movement in my life. So I'm
Right.
probably not going to play it. But yeah, trombone is my main instrument. I sing a little bit too, and honestly, just picked it up. Yeah, picked it up in public school, and that was it. I mean, I kind of blame my parents for not forcing me to take piano lessons, because that could have been really helpful. Yeah. But at the end of the day, maybe I love music more. Like, who knows? Maybe if they forced it on me, I would have rebelled against it or something. You know how crazy kids are.
That is the discussion in our household right now.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Because, like I said, we have a 7-year-old. My wife is a fantastic pianist, and I started with drums. And so obviously I probably had a little more fun as a kid while she was doing tough lessons and stuff. But she's fantastically trained in music theory now. I'm struggling to catch up with that, because as I'm doing like my indie game projects and stuff, I go, well, I have a musical background. I'd love to take a stab at composing this stuff. And like, I'm able to do it, but it hurts a lot more in my brain, trying to make up that theory stuff I never got. And so I'm kind of going like, let's start the boy on piano, and he can branch out after he knows, notes and sight reading and things like that. Stuff that the brain, it's something about once your brain is so developed as an older teen or an adult, like it's a little harder to learn that stuff you could have really, really nailed before age 10,
The theory, I think, is a little easier than the muscle memory would be. At least that's my personal experience. Like, I can wrap my head around the heady stuff, but what I really wish I had was just in my hands have that coordination to. I mean, you sort of have a bit of that as a drummer, I'm sure. Just doing the different directions, all that,
the multiple parts. Yeah,
that stuff. I'm imagining just the brain, like, creating all these pathways when you're young. And so I definitely gonna try to get Julian to learn something that's two-handed, some musical instrument that's two-handed, if it's guitar or piano, just so he starts getting that coordination down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, but yeah, everything is easier when you're younger. Learning anything is easier when we're younger. We don't appreciate it until it's gone.
Right, absolutely. And I coasted through. I wasn't the best student. I didn't take things seriously enough. And now it's like, oh, that young brain, and now how much harder I work on everything.
Right.
Were you a marching band kid then?
Oh yeah, for sure. We weren't. It was actually some pretty competitive marching bands around my hometown. And we were sort of the worst of all of them, because we only did 1 day a week, and every other band in the sort of the county they were every day. They worked at it. They rehearsed every day, and we were a really big school, so we had to compete against the best. And yeah, so I mean, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, we did it. I had a lot more fun in a punk rock marching band I became a part of after college called Mukapatsa, which is based out of Chicago, and that was probably the most fun I ever had with the trombone. It's they're still around. They, like I said, punk rock marching band. There was about 25 people, so full drum line, saxophone section, brass section, but also electric guitar. Like, we had a couple electric guitars where they had megaphones on their heads and amps on their back, and they would march around with us, and we'd play sort of strange, covers of old 60s TV tunes, but also like Balkan brass stuff. And it was just, really a real great time.
I love that. And every once in a while, you'll see like a viral video featuring an act like that, which I would have loved to get involved in. I just didn't know anybody who was doing anything like that at the time. But as soon as I saw it like on social media later on, it was like, oh, that makes total sense. That seems like a ton of fun. Yeah,
it was so much fun. I wish I stayed in Chicago a little longer, actually, to kind of just mess around with those guys. But I was intent on getting to LA, so I just only stayed there about a couple of years before I came out here.
Totally, yeah. And so you end up doing composition for it looked like some commercial work, TV, film, and you got hooked up at Disney. And I saw somebody had kind of taken you, a pretty famous Disney composer had kind of taken you under their wing. What was the story there?
Oh, I wouldn't say under my wing, but his name was Buddy Baker, and he is he's one of the legends. I believe his most famous film would be The Fox and the Hound, the original. And he would run this. He ran this workshop called the Buddy Baker Workshop in New York, and it only lasted about 3 weeks. And it was my first experience recording with live musicians, and I had so much to learn. I hadn't. I think I was right out of high school, so I really didn't have much experience working with live musicians at all that I had written for. And so I was really nervous. It was the last workshop he ran. And so he gave me feedback. I took lessons with him throughout those 3 weeks. And, he was just, I think when you're his age, I mean, he was in his, I don't know, he was really up there, probably late 80s. Like you don't have any more, like your BS is just gone. So he was just willing to just tell me exactly what he thought. This is too fast. This isn't a good memory. This isn't a good melody. Rewrite this. Like, he would just sort of just go right for it. And you just kind of be like, okay, yeah, I don't quite have the ego to withstand this yet. But it was a learning experience. And I guess, sort of forecasting the fact that I would ultimately be working for Disney too.
That's so cool. That story reminds me of one of the first concerts I played in downtown St. Louis. I was with a bit of a punk, like funk kind of hybrid band, and we were playing at like an art house show, and we were very excited about it. But the guy who ran it was this local professor who did like a rock music appreciation course, and like he was locally very well respected. And he kind of took us back after our set and was like, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you guys about some of your stuff. And he like went through all of us critiquing, and he was a little bit of an older guy also. Right. And he got to me and was like, I loved your beats. I love the way you support the band. It was really complicated though. And I mean, like, it's just rock music, man. And as a 17-year-old, I was like deeply wounded by this. I was like,
right. And this was right after the show. You had just finished playing, and the
adrenaline was still up a little bit. And he's like, come on, man, it's just rock music, man. I was like, who's this guy? Yeah. He was absolutely right, by the way. This is good advice. But God, music is like that. It's really personal,
Yeah, it is. I like to say that I have to fall in love with everything that I do. I don't say that as an idealistic statement, but more just like I need to find a way to love what I'm writing. Otherwise, I usually can't do it, because it is personal. And so even if I'm working on like these Disney shows are for, a lot of them are for preschoolers, right? So it's not something I would naturally find a way into creatively as an adult. So yeah, you have to find your way, find your inner child again. You have to find, just find that way in and then go with it.
Yeah. Some cool kids shows work, which had to be fun anyway. I imagine that was pretty fun. And then like you said, it would be hard to approach something like you must have to do a lot of sort of fast projects, especially for commercials. I mean, you get in, like, how do you really connect with that in such a short time, turn something around with, like, I'm sure its own feel to it, but it's just this one thing, Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you don't is what I would say. I didn't. Right. That's why I don't do commercials anymore. Commercials were, I always almost forget that I had that stint. I did them for a while. Just a quick story there. I had been in LA maybe 5 years. I had a bunch of credit card debt. I was totally broke. I was ready to leave, right? I was done. I was pretty much ready to move back at that point. And I get a phone call from somebody that he does not sound like a real person. He has this really sort of like thick, like surfer accent. And I'm just like, who are you? And he's pitching this. He said he got my business card from somebody at a party. And I'm like, well, okay. And eventually he's like, yeah, so we want to hire you to pitch on these Microsoft ads. I'm like, okay. And like, well, you know, if you win it, we'll give you 25%. And then that's another point in the conversation where I'm like, wait, why would I want to do that for 25%? I mean, you're going to take 75. And he's like, yeah, but you know, the campaigns are like $200,000. I'm like, what? I'd never heard, I didn't realize the money in advertising was that huge. I had no idea. And so I'm like, okay, I might as well give it a try. And I pitched on it and I got it, right? So I got that first one, which is unheard of, right? And so I ended up having music on a Microsoft commercial like that went international, and I was able to pay off my credit card debt, and I was able to have money to live on. I mean, like one of these things can pay enough for a year's salary, which it did. And the funny thing is too, they would back then they would give you, this isn't that long ago, but I still don't think they do this anymore, but they would give you lines. This is probably completely not kosher, but they're called lines, which are union slots basically as a union musician. And so you'd get like, I think I got like 8 players worth of slots as if I was 8 different musicians. And so I would get checks in the mail, like small checks for like $7, $8, $9. I would get envelopes that were like this thick of checks. And I would just, being an idiot, would stand at the ATM and just put them in one by one. And then I would get a long receipt out. Again, I like it basically kept me working that job. I never got another ad again. I worked at it for 3 years, writing demo after demo after demo, and never really, I got a couple little ones placed, but never one like that. And yeah, like you were saying, it's not really the kind of thing where you, at least for me, where you respond to the material, because I mean, we all have our limits, I guess, right? Yeah. And commercials they just weren't something that I could find a way in, honestly. And so it became such a hard slog for me. I really just started hating music while working on them. So I knew I had to stop. And so I eventually just one day was like, no more, we're done. That's when I was actually working as a video editor by that time, full time. So I could afford to say that. But yeah, I had to leave music for a while before I could find my way back into it.
Yeah. And I imagine video editing work in LA is a little bit more steady, maybe.
Yeah. I know. I may have just been lucky. That I found so much of it so quickly. But yeah, I mean, compared to composing, there's just a lot more need of it. I mean, the thing with video editing is that there are, if anything you see in the world, any piece of media has been touched by somebody in some way to edit it together, right? That means so everything from the lowest, sort of the lowliest public service commercial to the highest, Netflix drama that you can think of has a video editor. That isn't true for composers, right? Composers, they're on that high-end Netflix show, but everything else below that is taken up by music libraries now. Yeah. There isn't a composer writing that music. It's just music that the editors pull from these vast libraries of royalty-free tracks that are out there, right? And so there's just a lot less work paid like steady paid work as a composer, while with video editors, they have a lot of different levels they can sort of shoot for. Mm-hmm. The other thing about it is cool is that it was used the same part of my brain as being a musician, just getting the rhythm down. I mean, I originally thought it would be more about visual composition, and I'm a terrible artist, but it's not really about that. It's more, video editing is all about rhythm and pacing and just having a good aesthetic sense of what's a good performance, what's a read of a line, and that's sort of the same part of the brain I'm using as a film composer or a game composer.
Yeah. While the TV work was happening composition-wise, it looks like you got to contribute to, among other things, Smallville. Is that right?
Yeah, that was actually my first gig out of high school. I was...
Really?
I was, again, sort of just the randomness of my field. I feel like every composer has a completely random, unrepeatable set of events that lead them to whatever they end up doing. This, I feel like should have been a bigger deal, but I didn't know. Maybe I didn't know how to leverage it. I had responded to a Craigslist ad to score a industrial, like sort of internal documentary being made about the Mariani Fruit Company. I don't know if you know them. They're just like packaged dried fruit. You can see them in the dollar store or whatever.
Sure.
So I did that, right? And then the next project that production company had was making this Smallville web series. And I was the only composer they knew. So like, do you want to do this? I'm like, well, yeah. Oh my gosh, this is only exactly what I'd want to do. And it really shouldn't have happened. I mean, they probably should have just used the music from the composer on the show. But anyway, I sort of got snuck in there, and I got to score these great little Smallville webisodes, and I was just completely over the moon on that. I didn't really know what to do with it career-wise. I probably should have, hired a publicist and maybe talked to agents and done all of those things, but
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to leverage that at the time. So I kind of just did it, and then moved on to the next thing. Moved out to LA thinking like, oh, it'll all be just this easy, and it was not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And freelancing and contracting is like that
Right.
in game related stuff, in art related stuff. Like I was doing programming through Upwork, and an agency got a hold of me and was like, we'd love to work with you because you're local. They were in St. Louis. I was as well. And they go, do you think you could help us port this guy's mobile game to from iOS to Android, something like that? And I was like, yeah, that's great. Let's hammer a paycheck together and do a good job. That sounds great. We'll have fun. And the next thing they got, they were like, would you help us do a VR contract for Lenovo for Mobile World Congress? And I was like, yeah, we could, we can do that. And exactly right. That gets done. And it's like, how do we keep this momentum going? And sometimes you just don't. It's
Right.
just on to the next thing, back to another app, it's fine. But you're right, it's hard,
I'm thinking the same thing with Potionomics. I mean, it seems like we're doing pretty well, and I definitely want to do more gaming work. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not totally sure how to capitalize, or if I'll be able to. I mean, I'm, doing, being able to do podcasts like this is part of it. Engaging with people on Twitter, and having my music out there, people hearing it. I mean, it's funny, the work I was doing on all the work I've done, all the music I've done for Disney. My audience, they're 2 to 7 year olds, right? So I don't really have a fan base. So there isn't really anybody interacting with me, just because if they're going to care about anything, they're more excited about the songs, right? And even then, which Rob does, all the writing on, Rob Cantor, and even then, it's not like, Rob, if he's going to talk to anybody, it'll be the parents, right? And so it really is special to be on a project that has an audience that I can actually finally sort of talk to and interact with, which, I think people take for granted that all composers have, but, again, it's not necessarily true.
Yeah, and I mean, you're playing the long game, really, because these 2 to 7 year olds in 15 years, they're going to want you to do everything. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Maybe. Like, oh yeah, I remember your fairy godmother theme from. I don't know. Maybe.
That's the guy from Puppy Dog Pals. Let's go.
Yeah, well, additional music. I always want to clarify. Andy Bean is the main composer on that show.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool because I've seen some of the tweets, and I've looked at trailers for the game. I haven't got to play Potionomics yet. Gonna soon, but it puts music front and center. I mean, the trailer's hugely musical, all this stuff. So, I mean, it does seem like that's a great one to be a part of in terms of getting yourself out there. So I am hopeful that does lead to other great things for you. I'm sure people are looking at that and going, who's doing this great music,
Yeah. I mean, the team is so good about giving me opportunities to shine. I mean, it's not necessarily the case that all composers, especially on bigger development teams, are going to be, given shout outs on social media, right? I mean, it's sometimes the case that game companies don't even list the composers on the soundtrack releases. It's just, music by the Bethesda audio team, and they don't even, it's just like, who's that, right? I mean,
right.
I don't understand that. I mean, I don't really understand the mentality behind that, unless it just is a contractual thing. But yeah, with an indie game, you just have a lot more freedom, flexibility to sort of talk to the devs, and they want to work with you. They want to, they know that I'm going to do some work on the social media side to, promote myself, and I'm making these cool orchestral videos, and they're into that. And, and again, since it's small enough, we can all talk to each other. And that's true too on the development side, because the team is so small. I got to have a lot of insight into implementation of the music, and that's what that means is, you write the music, right? And you have your melody or whatever, but implementation is how it works in the game, right? When it triggers, how it loops, maybe some random numbers generation where in terms of like which sections loop more or less frequently. I got to be really hands-on and do all of that implementation myself. So I was able to, have the game in front of me, have the music in front of me, and play part of the game and be like, this piece of music's getting kind of annoying. I mean, I've heard this 15 times now in this section of music, in this section of the game. So I either need to make this longer or maybe just find a way to break it up. And so I would, for example, in that case, I'm just going to let the ambient sound carry the sequence for a while. So I would insert a section with a probability of like 30% that it would be a looped bit of silence, right, for a certain duration. So I would know that the player would get a break from that piece of music for that period of time and let their ear sort of reset. So usually that's actually handled by a whole other team. And I really loved being able to sort of to be the person doing that, because as a film composer, that's actually closer to what I'm doing when I'm scoring a scene, right? I'm thinking a lot about pace and how the music's interacting with the player. And with video games, that isn't necessarily what the composer is doing if there's a whole other implementation team. Mm-hmm. Because at that point, you're just writing the music. You're not really thinking about player impact as much.
Totally. I think that's a highly overlooked thing when, especially people who don't know too much about game development. It's like it's almost easy to miss completely because it's brilliant in its implementation. Just the way the music can be manipulated, layered, repeated and broken up and used in different ways. But like it's done so well that you almost inherently don't notice it. But it's still part of like how great the experience is. And when you go back and think of it, I've been guilty of interviewing developers at mid-sized studios who had to explain to me like, oh, the music is highly dependent on how you're playing the game, what you're doing in this puzzle. And I go, oh my God, how did I miss that? And of course it is. And it's almost like you don't notice, but you would notice in a negative way if the song had just looped 15 times while you're playing this one level, And
exactly.
I do. I think that's overlooked,
Well, it's supposed to be invisible, right? I mean, no one ever says, "Oh, I love that there wasn't any music in that scene," but it really is important to think about when you're creating the experience for somebody.
How hard is it to learn? I mean, I'm sure every medium has its own sort of playbook for composers. So, I mean, you've learned obviously all of the theory, all of the stuff you need to compose actual music. But in these different mediums, I mean, how long does it take to really get a feel for like, this is how I need to do it here?
I have not learned all the theory and all the stuff I need to compose music. I have learned, I feel like it's an infinite well to draw from. Every day I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel to an extent as I'm trying to crack a certain project, and especially at the beginning where it just feels like you're starting from square one again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so specifically, you're asking how long does it take to learn what aspect?
Well, like say games. I know you've picked up tricks about like instead of repeating a song over and over again, here's one of the things we can do to sort of break it up. I mean, like, was that a fast process to get acclimated for you, or are you still gradually learning that part of it too?
I'm still learning everything. I mean, we all go into, I think we all, especially with creative things that are a little more abstract and less concrete. I don't know if it's like this with programming or not, but with music, I sort of have a set. As I get older, I have more and more set ideas of, well, this will work well here and this won't work so well here, which is both a liability and also it's good to have those instincts, but it could also be a liability because, you don't want to get locked into that thinking. And definitely in Potionomics, there were moments where I found myself thinking something that Jadi, the developer, was asking wouldn't work. And sometimes I would say this, and then of course I would think back on that and be like, is that really my job? Am I really there to say, no, this can't work? And I think to an extent it is, but it's also more my job to at the very least find the spirit of what they're asking for and do that, even if I'm not literally doing what they're asking for, right? And so and that always involves being able to sort of be self-aware enough to turn off whatever judge in your head is telling you yes or no, and then step back and try new things. And certainly on Potionomics, back to sort of the player experience side of it, Jody really wanted really memorable themes for these characters, just like earworms basically. And that's great. That's great for me because that means I get to write memorable music. But again, from a player experience perspective, I'm constantly thinking, man, are they going to get sick of hearing this melody, right? Number one. Number two, Jody really wanted the music to be dynamic, which means change over time. And number three, he really wanted there to be no like quick time events, meaning, I don't know if that's the right word, but no timed sequences in the game where player control is taken from the player, meaning basically meaning no cutscenes, but not exactly cutscenes, more like moments. I don't know if you've ever played the game Ori and the Blind Forest, but that is a game it's a side scroller, so you never really leave the gameplay view, but it will take player control away from you momentarily, where a scripted sequence will happen within a certain amount of time on screen. And so, if as a composer I was scoring that game, I would know how much time I had for a certain amount of music to play, right? So I would be able to write a theme and know that it'll get to the end of that theme by the end of that scripted sequence. There are no scripted sequences in Potionomics. Everything is clickable and skippable from the player, which means the melody-based music that we were writing would be interrupted, right? You'll have a melody that's evolving and it'll just be cut off, right? Now, if the music is adapting to the player input like that, if that makes sense. So that was a problem that I really had to sort out on that game, because how do we achieve that dynamic music that Jody's looking for, also have strong melodies, also have music that can change at any point. And eventually I sort of settled on, well, you can't have all three, but I can sort of balance it in a way where it sort of works. And so with Potionomics, it was more a matter of, okay, there's this much text for the reader to get through. They're probably going to read about this average pace. So as long as the music is this short, I know I can at least finish this melodic idea before the player gets to this point in the narrative, and then I can loop something at that point. So it was a lot of thinking about, like, get my melody to this point, loop something for a while, hope the player hasn't gotten further beyond that. And then if they haven't, then it'll be smooth. And if they have, then, well, they're probably clicking really quickly through anyway to skip it. So they're probably not expecting a very smooth experience. But I know that sounds really complicated, but that's, that was sort of what we had to work out. And that's all trial and error. Honestly, that's writing the music and putting it into the game, playing the game, and then realizing, oh, that doesn't work at all. We have to change the music or at least implement it differently.
And it's another one of those things you can't hope to achieve if the audio in its entirety is kind of an afterthought for the game. I mean,
oh yeah, right.
I saw it mentioned that the game kind of goes for almost like a Pixar animated movie kind of vibe. And when I heard that, I thought, like, yeah, I can totally see that. And that, of course, would depend on tightly integrated, like, audio field, just the same way the animation style and all that visual stuff, like it has its own, regardless of the influence, it has its own identity, and the music for sure has to be a part of that. And it seems to work. It
does. Yeah, no, we did work it out. It was just a process. And maybe what I'm describing is, like I said, old hat for some composers. For me, it was new. I could conceptualize scripted sequences really well in my head. I can conceptualize dynamic music when it was in a certain genre, when it was more ambient and didn't have strong melodies. But it was just in this one case, this specific set of needs this game had, where it was like, okay, how do we do all this? And I bet every game ends up having those same set of special constraints you sort of have to figure out. Yeah, the animation, I don't want to say there are no scripted sequences. There are maybe 3 or 4 where I do get to time things out with the animations, but on the whole, the animation in the game is just as flexible. It just sort of, animations shift from one pose to the other. There were just all these different emotions, different expressions created for the characters. I'm not quite an expert on this, but from what I understood, there was just this bank of emotional reactions the characters could display, and then the writer on the game could choose which emotional reaction they wanted for each section. And and again, there was a lot more integration between the team members than I think you usually get on bigger teams, where the writer could have input in the animation and I could have input from the writer and vice versa. It was all really great.
And for a game in a pretty specific category, I mean, like it's a simulation game, it's a little bit of strategy, it seems like, and it's so much effort for a project that I feel like a lot of studios wouldn't have gone to those lengths. So if that makes sense, and I'm hoping that pays off because it seems like it was fantastically executed.
I think that might just be part of being an indie team and just being scrappy and trying to compete with like punching above our weight kind of thing. I mean, every aspect of the project was like that. I mean, recording an orchestra, right? For an indie game, it's pretty unheard of. We didn't need to do it per se. Like I could have just done everything with samples or synthesizers, but it would have been that, it would have just been just enough, not quite, it would have been just not quite as impressive. In a way, it would have this sheen of just not quite at the highest production level we could do. And we didn't want that. I didn't want that for any aspect of the music. I always wanted to be shooting for the absolute best I could with within the budget that I had. But they do, like you said, they do value music on that team. I mean, they did. Jody from the beginning wanted live orchestra. And so, he found the money for it. And if you don't have that goal, it's not going to happen. So I really grateful for him. Hope we do it again. I hope he came from this and was like, oh yeah, that was worth it. Hopefully he's not coming from this thinking like, oh, we'll just do it synthesized next time. But if he is, that's fine too. We'll make it work. But yeah, there is something special about the scrappiness, I think, of this team.
Right. I would love to see that pay off for more studios so that more studios, like you said, punch above their weight class and really swing for the fences when they want to do, great music, great animation, because, I should have phrased that a little more carefully because I want every size studio to try their wildest imagination, bring it to life. I mean, if you're a solo dev and you can only swing static drawings of characters and, loops that you got from the royalty-free part of YouTube, fantastic. I want to see it. I want to play it. Like, but
you can make brilliant work that way too. I don't want to knock it. It's just that this game had this particular aesthetic that that did call for live orchestra. I mean, obviously not all games would need a live orchestra. Not even every track in our game needs a live orchestra. Those are the ones I'm sort of showcasing a lot, of course, because I think they're awesome. But continue. Like, it didn't mean to interrupt.
No, totally. And you got the point for sure. It's like, try anything you can. And when you get a shot to, like, when you find a little room in the budget, a little extra time on your hands, like, take those big swings. Cause again, I would love to see more studios get to do that. And I'm sure, like, do you do a fair amount of work with, synthesizers and that kind of thing? Or do you always get to do like real recordings, real music, stuff like that?
All the Disney stuff is synthesized for the most part. For that level of programming, the budgets for the music really just aren't quite high enough to go out. And the other thing about that is I do think Disney is a bit more beholden to recording locally, and so there are some union considerations which I'm all for. But yeah, no, it is the exception, unfortunately. I would say, at least for the projects that I get, that are sort of my bread and butter work. For the projects that I do on the side that are maybe more independent or ones I have more creative control over, I always try to, like, for me, working with live musicians is part of the job. That's part of the joy of what I do. I mean, I'm not, like, I do work with synthesizers. I have a nice little collection of little cheap analog synths over here. I love these little Korg guys. This is a slightly more expensive Korg Minilog XD. So, I play around with traditional synths. They're really great for sci-fi, horror stuff, sound design. When I said synths earlier, I was actually talking more about synthesized orchestra stuff, which, just to clarify, is what I meant by the Disney stuff being samples or synthesized. But it just so happens that I grew up playing in orchestras. That's the kind of music that I know really well. And so for me, that's always just sort of been the most natural way of writing music. In a way, it would be better if it wasn't, because it would be cheaper if I just made music using analog synths, right? Because that would just be me. But yeah, for better or worse, I like working with live musicians, which means I have to budget for them when I'm working out my project, my rate, and having creative discussions with people.
Yeah, moving parts and moving people. That's always difficult. So do you get to work on your own music very much? Do you even want to with the amount of work you're doing now? I mean, how's it look?
I used to feel always really guilty about answering that question because I always felt like, oh yeah, I should be yes. I should be either like bitter that I'm not working on my own music or have some big project going on that's secret and I have to like that. But you know what? Lately I've just sort of accepted the fact that like as a composer, as a musician, my medium really is film music. I mean, I know that seems a little strange because I'm always in a way working for somebody else, but I mean, sure, I get notes from other people. Sure, my music is sort of beholden to the overall creative direction of the project, but still the vast majority of the creative work, the vast majority of the decisions that get made are me. I mean, I still have to bring a vision to the table. I mean, even if they think they have a strong idea of what they want, it's still not a fully formed idea until there's music, in front of them and they can react to it. And so yeah, for me, honestly, this is just what I want to do. I like writing for film and TV. I like writing for games. I love the collaborative process. It's hard. The collaborative process is very difficult, but it's what gets me inspired. It's what lights the fire under my ass, so to speak. So yeah, no, I don't feel bad or necessarily feel a drive to write other music. I used to. I mean, of course, I went to school and I wrote my own music as a kid, but now I'm very happy to just continue to find projects that inspire me, and when projects aren't inspiring me, I just work a little harder to either find a different approach to those projects, or like just look outside of my day-to-day work and, like I said, do an indie project here and there, or work for free on something that I'm passionate about. So there's always something to do that can fuel a different part of my creative output, as long as it doesn't take it's not that hard to find projects to jump in on, especially if you're lucky enough, as I am, to make money writing for like consistent money writing for a company like Disney. I mean, that really affords me the freedom to do lots of other things. Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool. I think
it's a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's exactly the kind of thing I wanted to know, because it does seem like you would be still plenty rewarded from the collaborative process. Like you talked about, like you have a lot of people doing very difficult, very emotional things in a number of different mediums to all come together to make a movie, a film, a TV show, whatever it is. And it would be hard to step into your shoes and say that, but like it would be, I would think it would be very rewarding, much the same way it would be if I was just sitting at home and went like, let's start from scratch and compose an album. Like, okay, more freedom, obviously you get to do it your way, but like that seems very rewarding, right?
Yeah. I mean, even if you're sitting down to compose an album, I mean, the only real difference between doing that and working on a film or a game is that you still need to create creative boundaries for yourself, right? If you're creating an album, you still need to come up with a concept and wall off your garden a little bit in such a way that you're not just picking from the infinite well of ideas around you. So in a way, you're coming up with the concept is what you're doing if you're writing the album, right? And you're not quite coming up with the concept for the game at the most foundational level, but you still have to bring a concept, right, to the game or to the movie or to the film that is inspired from that sort of other touchstone. So again, for me, it's really not that different. I just enjoy it more working in those mediums. I totally respect people though who want to, especially if you're writing lyrics. I mean, I think if you're a lyricist, music has a much different meaning to you, maybe a more literal meaning sometimes. I actually have a hard time responding to music with lyrics. I grew up listening to people like Bjork and Radiohead and Tori Amos to go way back, where the lyrics didn't really matter that much. Yeah. Rage Against the Machine, where the lyrics kind of matter, but they're not. It's more the energy that matters, right? Not the I don't know. I consume lyrics, I think, differently than some other folks do.
I like that. It's responding to the energy. I think that's important in music. And I listened to Rage earlier today. So
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah.
So that's my jam for sure. I'm guilty of doing what I always do when I have musical guests on. The hour flies by, and
cool.
we could fill a much longer period of time, but we have to wall off the conversation also, I guess. So before we go, let listeners know where to find you online, Potionomics, anything you want to plug.
Yeah. Well, the game came out on Monday, and so if you are a gamer, I would love for you to check out the game. It's on Steam currently. I do think the developers want to bring it to consoles, but that's still TBD. You can get the soundtrack on Steam as well. It's currently bundled with the art book which contains amazing amount of concept art by Hope Lee, who's one of the team members. You can also buy the soundtrack on my Bandcamp page. That's a little bit more of a direct way of supporting me if you want to do that. And it's also streaming. So I mainly just want to plug that. Check out the game, check out the soundtrack. Find me on Twitter if you want to reach out. I'm always looking for new collaborators and always interested to, if you want to pitch something, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. And hopefully this is the first of many game projects like this that you get to do, because it looks like this one has been thoroughly knocked out of the park. So I'd love to see some more.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great. I appreciate this was a nice casual chat about art making, and it was great.
Let's do it again sometime soon. Thanks again. Okay, as always, if you enjoy Game Dev Breakdown, please consider subscribing wherever you're listening right now. We have articles, show notes, and more available at CodeWritePlay.com. You can reach out on Twitter at CodeWritePlay, at GameDevPod, and me at Megatodzilla with 1D and 2 Ls. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our sponsors. Show them some love, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks, everybody.